But yeah, it's finding a good process when you're super busy, which I'm sure, as you know, with like longer form content and the kind of like higher amount of editing time that comes in with that, it's tricky finding that like time allocation amongst all other things is really what limited me from doing the podcast as much. But I think, yeah, I'll just have to keep, either being really diligent about blocking off time to
Yeah,
edit the long form stuff, or try to find someone on Fiverr or some other like outsource
yeah,
outlet that I can get to edit like a YouTube video and a podcast. So where they do it and I'm not like, oh, I don't love that. That's
right,
been my barrier.
right. Yeah, I suppose that you have your ways, like you have the ways in which you
Hmm.
like your stuff to be edited. Um, it's definitely tough to find someone. The thing with Fiverr, like I've worked with people on Fiverr as well, and I totally understand what you mean. Like I had this guy, and before working with him, I just went through like four different people. And the thing is, once you find the person that just does the job that you really like, stick with that person. Like as the saying
Yeah.
goes, is like if it's not broken, don't fix it. Um, but also, it's like
Right.
it also depends
Right.
if you feel the need to outsource. Um, maybe in your case could be something like instead of outsourcing, just trying to have a workload, to the same degree we structure or training, right? It's like don't bite more than you can chew. Instead of
Hmm.
putting yourself in a position where I have to upload, I don't know, 3-4 times per week. Man, like
Yeah.
you do like one a week maybe, and you
Right.
can just right. I don't know. I
Yeah,
think
no, that's honestly so true, because sometimes I'm like with the podcast, I'm like, man, like I want to do one a week because that's what I used to do when I had like much more time, and I'd be so diligent about getting one a week up, and then when you can't do one a week because other life responsibilities come up, it's like, I fell off. It's like, oh, would you rather work out 3 times a week because that's what your schedule allows, or would you rather just not work out at all because you have the expectation of getting 6 training sessions in a week? It's like, obviously, just get what you
absolutely right.
can. So that's a
Yes.
great analogy.
It's
Yeah, dude.
and that's when being a coach can really help us in just improving in any other area of life, because in the end it's like gym
Hmm.
stuff applies to everything else.
Yeah.
And if you're smart enough to put yourself, like look at yourself from an outsider perspective, it's like, okay, if I were one of my clients, what I tell myself?
Hmm.
Well, maybe you should like back off a little bit, do a little bit less, be more consistent. That also applies to all things like even um, I'm not great at this, by the way, when it comes to um, self-talk. Like sometimes I find myself just beating myself up for stupid stuff,
Hmm.
and then I'm like, first, this is not helpful. Second, keeping this to the same degree that I tell my clients, hey, if you keep telling yourself that you are X way, then you're going to continue doing the same things, the
Yeah,
same
that's
patterns.
true.
You have to like kind of remind yourself the same stuff. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So
Oh
um,
yeah. Yeah.
that coaching experience can really help us as individuals. I see.
Yeah, dude. That's a great point. I've thought that so many times. Like you can apply the fitness concepts and coaching concepts to anything, and reach some level of success, or start to improve. I found that very true as well. It's a great reminder for the people out there.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Or like vice versa. Like maybe I'm sure you've had clients that are like super good at their profession, super successful, maybe building a business or whatever their job is, and they're really good, but they haven't quite nailed the training or nutrition part. Just realized I have a giant stain on my shirt as
Oh,
we get into it. All good, whatever.
oh, dude.
The haters will hate. Um, yeah, and I'm like, hey, that same diligence that you apply to your work, that you go through your 9 to 5 with, yeah, just like try to bring some pieces of that over to the gym and over to your fitness routines. You probably see some better progress.
Absolutely. It's really funny that you mentioned that, because majority of the people that I work with are tend to be either more on the entrepreneur side of things or in the busy professional type of work. Like I work with a lot of health professionals, a few doctors, some people that are like first responders, and
Mm-hmm.
usually these people, it's interesting because once you paint the picture to them, like, okay, so how did you get here in this endeavor, in your occupation? Well, I started with this, I followed this path, I stayed consistent. Well, guess what? The exact same principle applies to your fitness. And
Mm-hmm.
I know it's not what you wanted to hear. I know that it's not the sexiest thing out there, but it is the truth. And
Yep.
once you have someone understanding that, and then you have a process for them to follow through, and they have already experienced success in something else in their life, once it clicks for them, it's just game over. It's already like they already won the battle, if that makes
Mm-hmm.
sense. Because they know what success looks like when you follow the process. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really cool to see that from from people. Like, if you just like it's like the old saying, I'm not sure if I get this right, but if you're good at something, you can be good at anything. That applies to fitness.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, dude. So if you're out there struggling to get started with your fitness journey, struggling to lose those first few pounds or put on some muscle, just try to think of something that you are good at and apply those same well, to some degree, apply as much as you can over to the
And
fitness.
the principles are not, I mean, it's funny that you say that, but it's just, the thing is, when people kind of evaluate the things that they're really good at, and for you guys, if for anyone that's hearing this, like, if you're good at anything, you kind of realize that what really makes the biggest difference is the fact that you are just really good at the basic stuff, the boring stuff done day in and day out, right? If you do those things, which are the big pillars, the big principles, that of course are never the fancy stuff that you see on TikTok or a YouTube reel, but the boring stuff that that should be done but you're kind of avoiding, that's the stuff that creates 80% of the results, 90% of the
Mhm.
results. It's
Yeah.
I think maybe it's the Pareto's principle. I'm not sure if I'm saying that this guy that right. But it's basically the principle goes on this. It's the following: 80% of the outcomes come from 20% of the output. So
Yeah. I like it. I like it.
just double down on the basics, and you're gonna get pretty much all the results that you could get.
Yeah. Yeah. It's always like the basics are the hardest thing to sell to people and maybe not necessarily always sell to them, but also like impress upon them. So with your own like coaching clients, if there's someone that's struggling with just like understanding, hey, like we just got to have some level of consistency. We just got to clean up the diet a little bit. Like, what are some of the steps that you take to build those like basic foundational habits of following, the simple tried and true stuff if they're just struggling to get that?
I would first encourage them to think about the goal. What's the desired outcome that they want?
Mm-hmm.
And make them understand that to get there, there's a process, and that it's going to take some time. But by taking those likely boring but necessary steps, we're going to get there. And it's almost like impossible not to get there if we approach things um, with such approach, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and yeah, I mean, I think it's a matter of taking it one step at a time. And also, a couple of things that I would say here is that first, it's important to really help people understand that um, it's one step at a time type of thing. You're not going to get there in one go, and that it's very important to celebrate the wins along the way and track
Mm-hmm.
progress. That's another huge thing. You know,
Yeah.
I bet that you know this yourself, as you've coached people before as well. But the biggest reason most people just don't make the results, they don't get where they want to go, is not because they don't follow a plan. It's not because of lack of willpower. It's simply because of lack of recognizing progress. And
Yeah.
so, most diets kind of work. Like if someone, and I'm not, by the way, I'm not saying that anyone should do this, but let's say that you're someone slightly overweight, you start eating clean, or you start doing keto tomorrow. Yes, the first week you're going to lose a bunch of weight because of it's likely mostly water weight, but regardless, you lost some weight. But because on the second week or the third week, like you step on the scale, you step it on the scale after like 2 weeks of even checking your weight, and you see a slightly spike on your weight, that makes you really doubt the process. And then you see yourself in the mirror and you just don't see that much progress, and then you just kind of quit because it's not working.
Hmm.
But guess what? If you were actually measuring progress and you had like your waist circumference, if you had your weekly average weigh-ins rather than just one day out of the week, you might come to notice that you lost like, man, 6 pounds in 2 weeks.
Hmm.
That's fucking amazing.
Yeah.
But guess what? Because you don't know, you're not tracking progress, you don't know whether or not you're making progress. And body composition changes take time. And because
Hmm.
you're not recognizing progress, you cannot celebrate the progress.
Yeah.
And celebrating progress, celebrating small wins along the way, it's so important because that really creates that positive reinforcement.
Hmm.
You see the progress, you kind of paddle yourself in the back because, well done. And because you're really getting good at it, you want to do it more.
Yeah. Is that something, celebrating the wins and kind of like noticing the small measured progress? Is that something that comes easy for you personally, or do you struggle with that? I feel like I definitely struggle with celebrating the small wins along the way, whether it's not just fitness, but just like generally in life as well. How about you?
It's interesting that you mentioned that because as of late, I've been a little bit better at it. Um,
Hmm.
Again, it doesn't come naturally, but more so because I've learned to kind of place myself as an outside entity, and I try my best consciously to evaluate myself, my progress, my wins, as if I was a client, because I know the worth of that. Because people pay me for that, and so I know that it's worth something. But naturally, not at all. Like I've always, in fact, all the time I struggle. I have to kind of fight against that, you know, voice, just not very helpful voice in my head that tells me, you should have done this. You could have done better. You idiot. Whatever. Right? Like we all have that. But yeah, it doesn't come naturally. I've been getting better at it with time though.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely something that I feel like a lot of like people that are either they have like high ambitions or they just have like a high level of accountability. Like for me, yeah, never was able to celebrate the little wins. Even thinking back to like when I got my first job out of college, or like if I did great on a test in school, or like, yeah, if like you crush a diet and at the end you're looking pretty good, it's tough. And then, like you said, like I feel like documenting the progress, it does help you to see that and have a good measure of the progress that you've made. So then, hopefully, maybe in the future, if not now, you can recognize those wins. But yeah, it's definitely a ongoing pursuit for me as well. And yeah, I hope people can take away that like it's okay to acknowledge those little improvements, and it's like a big part of the process for long-term success too.
I would say that it's not just okay, it's necessary. Like
Hmm.
really, if you think about it, it can really boil down to just basic human nature. We want to do things that we're good at. And first, you can't get good at anything without being a beginner. So that's that. You have to allow yourself to kind of suck a little bit at first. But then it's really hard in many things to acknowledge progress if you don't even measure. You know, it's really hard to tell whether or not you're earning more at your job, if you're not even paying attention to your bank account.
Mm-hmm.
Really hard to see whether or not you're making progress in your training if you're not even tracking your training, or if you don't even have a program.
Yeah.
Right? It's really hard to assess whether or not you're making progress in body composition if you don't, track anything. That applies to everything. And so
Mm-hmm.
I think that tracking is the biggest cheat code key point that people should pay attention to for building momentum and just long-term success, I think.
Yeah. Dude, what a way to kick off episode 81 of the Trainer Scoop podcast. What a good start. Appreciate you for coming on once again, third time being here on the podcast, Jorge. And it's great to talk again. It's been we mentioned February of 2023. So what's that been? 12 plus another what? So like what, 17, almost a year and a half since we've come on the podcast. And yeah, man, like the last time I was looking back and we talked a lot about like training and some emerging training concepts back in that February 2023, where we're talking um, active rest, we were talking lengthened partials. I remember the first one we talked about like coaching business and kind of the ins and outs of making a career out of being like an online coach and being a fitness professional that way. But yeah, man, what's been new with you? I know you had a killer diet that you crushed and you competed in the meantime. I'm sure you've been extremely busy with other side projects. So what's been up?
Man, where to start? I mean, we could start with since we've been talking a little bit about like more lifestyle, we could talk about perhaps training, that sort of thing first, right? Um,
Yeah, yeah.
so basically, man, I mean, this past year or so, it's been crazy. Um, First and foremost, I mean, I've had the opportunity to catch up with a lot of people that I look up to in life, not just in
Yeah.
not in general. I was able to make it to Vegas and train with Jared and connect with him. Um, and so throughout that entire process, I learned a lot. Um, I was able to also connect with Dylan as well. So we had a cool time there in Vegas training. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I mean, so far um, in October of 2023, I think. No, 2020, 2022. Yeah, 2022, October. Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, October of 2023. Sorry, I'm just like all over the place. I started my prep, and yeah, I mean, it wasn't smooth. It was a long prep. It was like 20 plus weeks before my first show,
Yeah.
and dude, it was nuts. Honestly, um, like in 2020, no, 2020, 2022, 2021, I think it was my last show. I thought that I was lean, and then I got this prep. It was insane.
You got lean. That was insane how lean you got.
Thanks, dude. The thing is, it's kind of crazy because I look back and I look at the numbers. I see the check-in photos. I see the weight, the body weight, and I'm like, was I making a mistake when tracking this? Because this doesn't make sense. I remember I was like 2 months before my first show, and I already had like I was looking at like veins in my abs, and I was like 5 pounds lighter than the lowest weight I had on my last show. And still, I knew that I could get leaner. But here's the thing.
Oh shit.
Here's the thing. Last time I competed with the intent of just competing in men's physique. But last minute, I decided to step on stage uh, for also classic, which went really well. But for this time, for this prep, my whole intent was to make my first get my toes into natural bodybuilding. because last time I competed in the NPC, I've never competed in a natural federation because
Mm-hmm.
I actually didn't know it existed, which is sad.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so, but I mean, backing off now, my whole intention was to see where I stand in natural bodybuilding. And so, last time I was lean, here I needed to be shredded, like glute striation type of shredded. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that was my whole intent. And so, um, dude, I ended up my first show at like 20 pounds lighter than my last prep. I know I still say the number, I just can't comprehend how, but that it's there. Like I see the numbers, and yeah, it comes to show how much leaner you can get if you
Mm-hmm.
actually give yourself the time and put in the work.
Yeah. Were you self-coached through that last prep, or were you working with a coach?
So, Jared is being helping me throughout the entire process, um, from this prep, and also since the past 5 years or so.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is, at this point, we kind of have um, friend friend or more. What's the word I'm looking for?
Like a mentor almost?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's more like a mentorship type of relation,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm very grateful for that. He throughout the entire process, he just gave me input like, "Hey, I would do this instead. Uh, increase the volume here on for this meso, decrease a little bit the calories." He also just I hand him the entire picking process, and so that really helped me to come in, crispy for the show.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, he did help me a lot throughout the entire process.
So, and everyone listening, keeping in mind, bodybuilding is extreme, and you shouldn't take these and apply them to yourself. But like, how low would you say food got? Like, and how high would you say your activity was? If you were to ballpark it, you don't have to give
For
exact
sure.
numbers because
No,
we
no,
know.
I can tell you like the worst of it. The worst of it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Tell us the
So
worst.
yeah, the worst of it. So again, as David mentioned to anyone listening, I am not recommending anyone to do this because this is not sustainable nor is healthy. But this is sometimes what it takes to get like crispy lean, like single digit body fat on a bodybuilding stage. By the way, if you do this, it's not going to get you lean like a bodybuilder. If anything, it's just it's basically crushing you
Yeah,
to a point where you are just going to binge or something along those lines.
yeah, yeah.
Not what you want. So keep that in mind. The lowest it got was at around, I'd say, 1,300 calories, and I was hitting about 16, 20K steps daily. I know
Damn.
it's just stupid great low, right?
Yeah,
But man, I mean, that's that's what it takes,
yeah,
Um,
yeah. Definitely, man. I have a. Sorry to cut you off there. It kind of like lagged. So sorry if you did. You have anything else to say along those lines? My bad.
no, no, you're good.
Okay,
That's
perfect. Yeah, I definitely want to go over just like a few quick, like more technical elements of the competition prep. So for those watching, this is a little bit more in the deep side, but I'm very interested in this because, yeah, I'm interested in, you know, at least dieting down very lean, if not maybe doing an entire prep. My limiting factor is I'm afraid of the way my legs are going to look because just have a lot of real estate to fill out on these legs. But for the one specific question I've always wondered for your prep, as your lean body mass decreases, as well as obviously the fat body mass, do you decrease protein intake, or is that a more static number throughout the duration of that prep? That's like composing of that 1,300 calories. Did
yeah.
you start and finish at the same place, or?
That's a great question. So protein was the one micronutrient that basically stayed relatively stable to a
Hmm.
point, because there was a point, man, when I was just not losing anymore, and so there were days where I could perhaps being slightly lower than what I usually stay at when it comes to protein. When it comes to protein during prep, I stay at a 1 gram per pound of body weight flat for the most
Hmm.
part. But for the last bit, like the last depletion portion of it, before carving up, getting back to maintenance, the fun stuff.
Hmm.
I would say that I was more like at around 0.8 grams per pound of body weight,
Okay. Okay.
which again is not necessary. It's not what I would recommend for most people. If anything, the leaner you are, the more I would advise it more so to aim for a higher amount on average.
Hmm.
So like, if you usually do like 0.7, 0.8 grams per pound of body weight and you're like at 12, 13% body fat, as you get in more like closer to single digits, I would aim slightly higher, man, like just to be safe, just to
Yeah.
be uh to make sure that there's enough, like you're not like protein intake is not a contributor to muscle loss throughout the prep, right?
Right.
But I mean, in my case, like I really just want to come in as lean as possible, and that's what I did.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. Nice. In terms of the peak week that you ran, did you do the whole like fat load, low carbs, and then go higher on the carbs to fill out towards the end of the week? Or I know there's a certain risk to reward ratio
Yes.
where you can try to shoot for the stars, and sometimes that could have a not as advantageous effect on your physique, but also you want to potentially tweak a few things for peak week. So what's
Yep.
your approach there?
Yeah, that's a really good question. The first show actually, I approached things slightly different from what I've done before. Um,
Hmm.
when in this instance, I was following the plan that basically Jared and I um, basically spoke about. We had everything planned out, but I felt like before, at least in my case, for my body, doing just extreme carb loading is just not really, at least how I felt, just wasn't my best. If anything, I felt, and this is something that a lot of competitors might relate to. If anything, it's the few times that I've competed before that I've done just very harsh carb loading before competing. Yes, I've looked quite fuller, but just like a little too stuffed for
Hmm.
stepping on stage. But it's actually the day after or a few days after when first your stress is just super low, and food's a little more stable. You're not like going back, like just making drastic changes to your diet. It's actually a few days after the show that I've noticed before that I'm like, holy shit, man, can I just step on stage like now? This is crazy. Like you see veins everywhere, you feel yourself fuller. And so I had a conversation with about this to Jared and also to Dylan, and we approached things slightly differently. And so what we did is a week before the show, we brought nutrition back up to maintenance, basically, and just chill. For the most part, when it comes to training, it was basically deload week before uh, the first show. And so the whole point here is to bring stress low. The last thing you want when it comes to competing is to be in a very stressed environment. So stress low, and also just relax. And as we got closer to the show, I we slightly increased carbs and just carb loaded a little bit. And I think that first show was like my best package so far. Like I was full, I was feeling like my best, and I mean I think it shows because like I see the pictures and performance. I was like, okay, this is the way. Um, Now, on the second show, I did things slightly differently. I kind of went back to the approach that I did before just to see if that was, um, if there's really a big difference. And I would say that I wasn't as sharp as on the first show. So yeah, that's what I did. And again, like this whole prep was not for me to accomplish anything like big, but it was to kind of just see where I stand in natural bodybuilding, and also um, for me to test myself and see what works and what doesn't, especially for peak week.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. It's like I was talking with a client through this he's about 8 weeks out now. And I'm like, man, it's like you're trying to land a jet on a aircraft carrier in the middle of the ocean. Like it's just very, very nuanced. And, you know, if you got those thrusters on a little too much, you're gonna overshoot and have to loop around, and spill over is like the bodybuilding equivalent. Or if you underdo it, then you fly into the side of the aircraft carrier. There's a massive explosion. You die. Half the people on the ship die. No, I'm just kidding. It's not
I
that
mean,
serious. It's just
that is
bodybuilding.
great. That's a
But
great
that
analogy.
would be devastating.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great analogy, actually. That's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
my type of analogy. Love it.
So I'm trying to plan that for him, because I've read over the articles, of course, watched the Dr. Mike and Jared videos, and as well as Physique Collective and a lot of different sources. And um, yeah, my only experience with this was when I did the RP photo shoot, and I tried to follow the outlines of the peak week article that Jared and Dr. Mike have cited in the past, and I was actually like pretty flat for that photo shoot. I wasn't like stage lean by any means, probably still in double digit, 10 to 12 body fat, but I was pretty lean. And
oh, dude, I think
it
I saw
wasn't
those
until
pictures. You're
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, like I had a good little six pack going, some veins in the chest and whatnot. And yeah, it wasn't until after we had a buffet at the Bellagio where Nick Shaw just ate the most egregious fucking amount of food I've ever seen in my life. I ate
Nick
quite a bit
Shaw?
too, but like,
Nick Shaw? Are
yeah,
you?
Nick fucking smacked food. Like it
I
was unreal.
cannot believe that. I can. Now that you're saying it, it's so funny because now that you mentioned that, of all the people in the RP team, the one that I see like the most, or I would say the less unhinged when it comes to food, is Nick. Like he posts his meals
Yeah.
and it's like, oh, a piece of broccoli with a little bit of rice and chicken. I'm like, dude, you know, I wish I was like that. I can't do that. Like
Yeah.
if I
I
go to
wonder.
bed, it's crazy. It's you're like, okay, is this guy like an animal? Is he like an anime character? Like what's going on here? And now you're saying it
Dude,
literally. And now that you're saying that, I'm like, wow, that's crazy.
actually, Jared, I remember we were at the buffet and I was like, I don't think he's dieting for anything. And he kept it super healthy, like had a huge bowl of mixed greens and lean proteins and like a hard boiled egg. And I'm like, damn,
Yeah,
like Charlie, when Charlie was with RP, he had like a big ass thing of white rice, like keeping it clean. But I
yeah,
wonder if it was because Nick was signing off on the bill, and it was like probably upwards of over $1,000 for, oh, definitely over $1,000 for everyone that was there. If he was
really.
like, fuck it, we're getting the most out of this.
Right. I mean, it's a buffet, right?
What was that?
It's a buffet, correct?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Dude, mine as well. If you're going to those like super expensive buffets in Vegas, like you gotta
Hmm.
make it worth, right?
Yeah. Dude, speaking of Vegas, how was your time in Vegas? I was really interested to see, you out there with Dylan and the other people on the RP team. I remember the funniest fucking thing, man, was poor Jorge. For those who don't know, he was out. So this would have been what? Was this May of 2023? Or I
I
want to
think
say
so.
when
I
it
think
was EDC Vegas.
yeah.
And you could hear the fucking bass in the background of your videos, dog. I'm like, this guy's getting no sleep. Like, bro, I would have been out there. I would have fucking went. That's my
No,
goal, bro. I'm trying to go to EDC. I told Jared I'm gonna come out and visit him at EDC. But yeah, like how was Vegas in general, dude? That seemed like a really interesting time period for you.
Dude, 100%. So it's quite interesting because every time people ask me like, dude, how was Vegas like that, or I mentioned that I've been in Vegas, they look at me and they're like, oh, you're like that. And I'm like, what do you mean? Yeah, you like night stuff. You like
Oh, the party scene,
yeah,
yeah.
you like partying, you like drinking. I'm like, no, I go to bed like at 8:30, like at
Yeah.
4. And then people are like, what the hell are you doing in Vegas? So let me explain why. Vegas, it's quite interesting because it has everything for everyone. It's crazy, man.
Yeah.
Like sometimes, like it is exactly how you see it in movies. Like if you go to a hotel, that's one of the things that I just don't like is the fact that you have, when you go to a hotel, it's mandatory that you have to go through a whole ass casino just to
Yeah.
get to the front desk, which
Yeah.
is kind of fun for the first few days, but then you're like, God damn it! Like I park my car here, I have to walk all the way there to the casino, and it just smells
Yeah.
like horrible, like
Oh,
piss.
and then you walk down at 7 in the morning, and they have Lil Jon Get Low playing, and I'm like, bro, I just woke up and we're already out. It's like people are getting back from the club at 7 a.m.
Dude, 100%. Like there were days I remember that I was going to bed, getting ready to go to sleep, uh, and then I go back down like at 4 a.m., 5 a.m. to just get some work done or whatever, like in the coffee shop, and I see the exact same people in the exact same position, the exact same machine. I'm like, dude, we live in a different world. This is crazy, you know. Um,
Oh yeah,
but
yeah, it's
all that
crazy.
all that being said, to the same degree that there's that side of Vegas, right now there's the fitness side of Vegas, which a lot of people might not be aware of. Vegas is slowly but surely becoming one of the meccas, or places to go for fitness in general. We have multiple uh, just world class gyms there. Um, there's just some of the most influential people that I know of are living there and training there.
Hmm.
Not just for fitness, but also for things that connect to fitness, like business and that sort of thing. Like
Yeah,
I was just telling a friend about this. Is like I remember the first week that I was in Vegas, I went to the Dragons, and dude, I was just training there, and all of a sudden, just like Hormozy appeared.
yeah.
It
I
was
thought you were gonna say Hormozy, bro.
good, and I was like the biggest fanboy. Like, dude, hey, what's? And he's like, stop it. Hey, what's up? I was like, oh shit, man. I'm sorry, just like, I'm not trying to be a fanboy, but I'm a fanboy, whatever. I can't
Yeah,
control. Um, but yeah, I mean, you have amazing gyms, you have great people, great environment. Um, while there, I made just way too many friendships, like connections with people that are in the same environment as us. And so for like work wise, I love going there just because it's just so um, the atmosphere is just amazing for training and for work in general. Um,
hmm,
and the food, man, like if you're massing, it's insane the amount of just good restaurants that you find there. Like
yeah,
I don't know, be honest with you, I'm not sure if I would ever go to one of those like super expensive restaurants. But while there, I went with um, a few friends to just like many sushi places that are like first amazing and just like super cheap as well. And so honestly, it's a great place to be for, like, if you're a fitness person, it's a great place to be. You
yeah.
don't have to go there just for the booze and party and that sort of thing.
Right. Yeah, dude. That it looked like a really cool time period, and yeah, like you said, great for networking. I think, yeah, like you said, it's probably, if not, yeah, I would say it's probably the mecca for fitness right now. Like Florida scene is pretty good, but yeah, just the sheer concentration of amazing gyms and pro physique athletes and high achievers in Vegas is probably like what makes it just a really great place to be.
Yeah. Be honest with you, now that we're talking about it, man, I miss it. I miss it, and
Yeah,
I think I might go there. In like, I don't have anything planned out, but this year I'm going back again and staying there for a while. Just again, it's a great place to do work, to
yeah.
to connect with people, and that's what it's all about. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I've really enjoyed my time in Vegas. Trying to think, in 2022, I was pretty broke at the time because I just moved cities and was like getting my feet under me professionally. And I went out to Vegas for the RP photo shoot, and then like right back to Vegas for the Olympia, like in the RP summit, like 2 months later or so. And yeah, it's just like definitely some of my favorite travels because, like you said, just like awesome food. I met some great people that I still keep in touch with, great training sessions. It is, I say, humbling for sure to go to some of these gyms and see the physiques there. And you're like, man, if only you applied a little bit of scientific principles to your training, just a little bit. Like I understand you don't have to drink the whole glass of Kool-Aid, just like a sip.
Yeah,
I'm like, man, we could really turn this up another notch.
a hundred
Um,
percent, man. It's
yeah. You see
but yeah,
some crazy shit from jacked people. I'm like, wow, your training's wild, man.
it's super interesting that you mentioned this because if anything, I've seen a really positive evolution in bodybuilding in the past few years. Like compared to
Hmm.
2020, man, like people are getting smarter, people are getting better, people are
Hmm.
actually opening up their minds, their eyes to better approaches, which is very cool to see. You see IVB pros applying actual training principles, which is something that if you actually would have told me that in 2020, I'd be like, oh, get out of here. But it's happening. It's like you see Nick Walker, working with RP, doing full range of motion, actually giving a fuck about their training, tracking stuff, making
Yeah.
progress in that regard. Also thinking not just about the progress on just lifting heavy shit for in full range of motion, but also about thinking about the longevity side of things. Like
Yeah.
people are actually taking these things into consideration. Like this last time I went to Vegas, for example, I was like just pleasant, like I was very surprised in a good way. I was like,
Yeah.
good. It's great. I mean, it comes to show how evidence based training is just making a bigger impact more and more as time goes on.
Yeah, dude. I'm really glad you brought that longevity piece up. And this kind of, I have a great analogy for the longevity and what you can achieve with your fitness that likens it to like investing in financial markets, which I forget if I've told you, that's like my corporate, like 9 to 5 now. I forget if I told you that, but yeah, that's what I do during the day now.
Okay,
Um,
it's good, man.
yeah, yeah, dude. Yeah, I work at a company called Charles Schwab, which is just like a big like brokerage firm for people, and I'm on the phones like talking to clients about different questions that they might have, whether it's like financial decisions or stuff that they just need help with their accounts. So it's kind of like glorified financial customer service, but like obviously a big principle is basics, like we talked about before. Like if you have a diversified portfolio and you're not just like all in on one thing, sure you might get super rich on that one thing, but then over time your portfolio and your assets can tank.
Yeah,
If you just
or
like we talked about earlier, the basics, but then also in terms of longevity, time in the market will always beat trying to time the market. So if you can just like invest like $50 every what week or every month, whatever works for your finances, like if we're like what, like 20 mid late 20s right now, if we just invest that, the longevity by the time we're retired, that shit's gonna fucking exponentially grow. And I think that's the same thing with the longevity piece of fitness, like you brought up. Like if you're training smarter, you know, less impact on your joints, you know, the longevity that you can put, like if a bodybuilder were to have those scientific principles, maybe they could compete into their 40s and stay healthy
Yes,
and achieve their best physique ever. Same with like growing your investments, you know. If you have that
absolutely.
longevity component, it's so hugely beneficial.
100%, man. And it's funny that you mentioned that because, I've had this conversation with multiple people and even guys that are quite smart about their training. And for example, people, these guys that I'm going to mention, I'm not going to name names, but they usually will bring the point of, well, you know, they usually give me shit about my super slow eccentrics and stuff. They're like, well,
Mm-hmm.
there's actually not data supporting that doing such low eccentrics lead to more muscle growth. If anything, leads to the same hypertrophy outcomes from sets taken with like faster eccentrics, maybe, but perhaps getting more reps, lifting more weight. I'm like, exactly. That's my exact point. It's like what, and they're like, well, what do you mean? Well, it means that by controlling the weight, the load a little more, doing a little pause at the bottom, perhaps, at the stretch position, by biasing more the training more so at that stretch position. Again, low slow eccentrics. That means that you have to lift less load, do less reps, put overall less impact in your joints and connective tissue, and get the same outcome. That sounds like a win-win-win to me. It's like, what are we even discussing
Yeah.
here? You know what I mean? It doesn't even have to be better, but
Yeah.
just the fact that is equal, if anything, it's already huge. Because if
Mm-hmm.
you think about it for a second, it's like, okay, yeah, maybe you are, uh, I don't know how to refer to this. Like maybe, yeah, you're giving yourself a pat on the back with to your ego. Oh yeah, I'm lifting this much weight. Oh yeah, I'm getting this whatever. But 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the line, I'm going to be training, having fun in the gym, looking great as well. And you might, or likely might not. You might just be
Right.
just in a, not being able to do a full depth squat, perhaps, or you might be just really, really hurt. Um,
Yeah.
I'll take, I think that's something that you should keep in mind when it comes to adjusting your training.
Definitely. Yeah, man. It's interesting, this conversation line. When I was at the Olympia in 2022, I spoke with, I might mispronounce his name, but I believe it's Scott McNally, and he is in charge of this. It's called Think Big Media, and they have a couple of different podcasts, like real, like old school, hardcore bodybuilder oriented, and he has a great guy and super, super cool career and super cool work that he does. One thing that he mentioned was, you know, his point was something to the effect of, at some point you have this way that you love to train, and as you age, you might have to change that, like as your body might break down. And I'm thinking like, maybe like very likely there will be some ways that our training will change, but because we train in this like less sexy, a little bit more cautious, let's say, like less flashy way, I think you can sustain that and
Yeah.
eke out those like slight more results for much longer. And sure, time is going to get everybody at the end of the day. Probably not going to be doing this shit when we're 75,
Look,
but
hey, I would even push back on that and challenge you on that because I'm pretty much on the perspective that things are always getting better. And man,
mm-hmm,
like, the improvements when it comes like technology and
true.
like
Yeah.
gene therapy, the things are happening right now.
Yeah. True.
who the fuck knows? Maybe
Yeah.
70 might become or the new 20s. Who knows? So
Yeah.
yeah, who knows? That's it.
Yeah. That'll be crazy, man. It'll be cool to see how that all pans out and fits together.
Yeah,
And yeah, yeah. I'm curious along this line of technological advancements. I've talked with some of the boys of how they use like AI, whether it be in their business or training or anything along those lines. Have you integrated any kind of AI into your current routines, whether it be your business or anything along your process with fitness?
yeah. I'm if from all the people that you could talk about this, I'm the less tacky person out
Mm-hmm.
there, and still I do. Now I'm currently using AI to assist some of my needs when it comes to
Mm-hmm.
even business and programming as well. Um, but I mean, like compared to other people, like I know, for example, Dylan, he's just like a technomaniac compared to me. Like he just has everything super integrated. And I'm like, dude, can you talk to me in English? I'm not a super, uh, I'm not super into it, but I think that I'm slowly but surely getting using it. Like for example, I do use Chat GPT quite a bit, just to do some um, like basic programming things that I know that are going to take a long time for me. I just like give it the information, and it will like set things up for me based on the information that I provide, which is nice. Like it's just like 4 hours of work
Yeah.
I have to do that just gets done like this, which is mind blowing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, yeah. Aside from that, I would say that I still I could benefit more from it for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting, man. I'm kind of along those same lines. I've started to pick up some things just to try to get some time back in my day from like the business and onboarding and systems perspective. But yeah, in terms of like training and nutrition, obviously like RP has some good, I guess you could say AI because I don't know if it's exactly like the chat GPT like equivalent, but yeah, they have like a program that uses some type of I guess logic to determine results, and that's I guess you could consider that. So yeah, I've done like the RP hypertrophy app and enjoyed that, and of course you always have the diet app as like in the background to guide some decisions as well. But yeah, it's definitely something I'm looking into as well. Yeah, like you mentioned, like Dylan and Max, those guys, I feel like
Yeah, these
they've
guys,
really utilized it.
yeah, they're in a different headspace on that regard.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
hey man, can you like give me some classes on that? Like, teach me a little bit.
Right.
I want to learn.
Yeah.
Cool things that these guys are more than happy to. So yeah, it's cool.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. Got a good team in our corner there. And speaking of that, one thing that I know, you've been involved with in the past, and I've seen grow over the past months now, I guess, is the quantum physiques. So you want to talk a little bit about that? I'm interested to hear how it's going.
Yeah. So the quantum physics community is something that um, Dylan, um, my friend or man, and I just kind of came to. We just really wanted to create a community for people to just be able to find useful, reliable information for for fitness and body composition improvement. As you know, that's one thing that's kind of missing right now in the fitness space. There's just way too much information, which is great, but that means that it's really hard to tell what's true from what's not, what's right
Hmm.
information, what's not good information. And so this is just a free community that we just kind of created in conjunction, where we have courses on nutrition training, and more. It's not just information, but also step-by-step applications for people to utilize on their own. We
Nice.
have we have training templates. We have just a great community as well of just people that want similar results, and so it's another kind of source of just drive and motivation for new for anyone that joins. And
Mm-hmm.
it's been great. It's been great. Of course, it hasn't been easy. Just like anything, growing something out of nothing takes resources, takes time and effort, but it's been well worth it for sure.
That's awesome, dude. What are some of your, like, what would you say, like, if you were to have like a big contribution of those three Avenger level names, you, Dylan, and it's Armand, right? I'm pronouncing his
Armand,
name right.
yeah, correct.
Armand, yeah. Yeah. What's your biggest contribution to the community? What is the Jorge special touch?
You know, I think that we all kind of have very similar roles, although we
Mm-hmm.
have slightly different responsibilities based on our skill set. Um, Dylan is definitely more on the technical side of things. He's really good also on he does the core I think he does the nutrition. I mean, we're currently working on different other different courses, but he's the
Mm-hmm.
one who did the course on nutrition, which is
Mm-hmm.
very technical when it comes to how to set up macros, percentages of different macronutrients, and everything that comes along those lines. So he's more on the technical side of things and the nutrition side of things. Our man did the course on
Mm-hmm.
training principles. It's not super advanced um, training guidelines, but more so the things that people need to know to get started with the right food.
Yeah.
Um, and I did uh, when it comes to the courses that we built. I really focused because that was the one thing that we were missing there on the habits.
Yeah.
The habit building side of things, which is super important, but still very neglected.
Mm-hmm.
And how just making small conscious decisions on a daily basis can make huge impact in the long term, and how those decisions can become more so automatic. And
Yeah.
so it might feel hard now, but you might not even have to think about it in the short coming future. So
Mm-hmm.
I did that. And also it's the um, something that we also provide on the group is accountability and support. So if anyone needs help with anything, there's a section where they can ask questions, they can reach out for help, and Dylan, Arman, or myself are going to always get back, respond back, and perhaps help in any way we can.
Nice, man. Yeah, I love to hear that. And we'll have to throw some links in the video description in the podcast description as well, because I'd love to have people kind of get pointed that way. I feel like it's a great resource. I feel like the habit thing, it just makes sense for you, man. It's like what I see in your content quite a bit, and kind of like what makes you you, and how you excel is just like the day in and day out nailing it every day. So like that definitely makes sense to me. I love to see that. One thing I was a part of the team full ROM for, I think I did that for 2 years. Like I did it when it first came out, and then another year after that. The thing that I ended up not renewing my membership because there was a little bit of dogma creeping in that I was just like, honestly, I felt like at a certain point you're only going to be able to, you know, I shouldn't say this because it's not necessarily always 100% true, but when you're paying for a service and you get 99% of the knowledge and kind of like current takes at a certain point, when there's like other things like dogma that were just kind of like detracting from my overall like perception of it, that's when I kind of pulled the plug. Like for example, I remember I got into a huge debate with an individual, just silly. The guy was talking shit about Milo Wolf and LinkedIn partials, and I'm like, that's an interesting stance to take here, man. Like we're in a group paying money to kind of like work to advance our understanding of these training principles, and to try to see maybe if there is something else out there that can eke out an extra 5%. And, now we know it's more than 5%, but dude was just so opposed to it. And of course, at the time, the powers that be weren't also backing it fully because it wasn't extremely elucidated in research.
Yeah.
And
I
now
mean,
it's changed.
and just kind of playing a little more, a little of a, devil's advocate here.
Mm-hmm.
Milo has a way of communicating that tends to be a little provocative, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I kind of get why some people kind of just had a little of a hard take on what he said.
Yeah.
Well, like I totally understand your point. Like in the end, and this is something that I tried. This is a point that I try to bring up every now and then because we as people, as humans, we like teams. We like to be part of a group, but that also means that we like to not allow others into our group because that's
Mm-hmm.
what a group is. It's
Yeah. Exclusivity. Exclusive. I can't say that word.
it's
Exclusive.
exclusive. It's exclusive.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's why we have thrives. That's why now we have countries, etc., whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's something that we have to know. That's a nature of ours, and it is not necessarily always good, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And something I try always to just uh, bring up on on my social media and places in my circles as well. Whether it is um, places that I have a little more control of, like our community here, or even my social media, or even Team Forum at times. It's like just a reminder: nutrition and training are not religions. Stop picking sides. Stop uh, just approaching things with this like dogma type of mentality, as you mentioned, and let's do what we're here to do, which is just get better.
Yeah.
Right. Um, and I would say even Team Forum, like as of late, by the way, I thought that you were part of it. Like I think that I still see you. Um, I see you there. I see like you're still there as a member, I think. But
Maybe. I don't know. I haven't looked at it if I have. There is another David Martin. I will say there is another David
there's
Martin.
one
That was
David
pretty
Martin
cool.
with your face and your shirt, so I think that that's
No shit.
yeah.
Dude, you have to show me this. You gotta send me a screenshot.
I will. I will. I promise.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
That'd be funny
but
if I still had it.
yeah, I think that you're there. But anyway, as of late, the cool thing is that I think that perhaps those were like maybe some individuals more than anything,
Yeah.
because like if you see even Team Forum content, like or RP content, for that matter, they're doing content with Milo, like
Mm-hmm.
being on the last 2 or 3 videos of RP with Mike, which is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah. I love the way they're branching out with their content. Like they have some Eric Helms in there. They have, yeah, like Milo Wolf. They have a little bit of everybody really, like from all camps of fitness, which is cool to see. I like that they're like bringing people together.
the thing is, and it's funny that you mentioned that because and it's not that I hate what you said. I want to point that out, but I hate the word camp because that's something that sometimes I even get from people. It's like, oh, so you follow the RP way. No, I don't follow the RP way. Like, with kettlebells, the RP way. I follow the evidence-based way. And
Yeah.
guess what? Everyone who follows the evidence-based way does things very similarly. That's just like saying math. People who do math in a very similar way.
You
Two plus
follow the algebraic way.
algebraic way, right? Like 2 + 2 is 4. Oh, you're one of those, right? I'm like, you know. Um, and so that's a cool. That's actually something that I think it's really cool about this, because if you approach things in that way, which is I think something that RP is doing really well as of now, as of late, you are not picking teams, you are not fighting against anyone. You are just all contributing to the same purpose, which is progress. You know, which is cool. It's really cool to see.
Yeah.
Like the only people that I see these days just having problem with others in that regard are those who are dogmatic, are those who really just want to get some attention in the in not the best ways, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure.
And I'm sure that you and I know a couple. I'm not sure. I don't think it's worth even mentioning here, but there's some guys that they just kind of call themselves evidence based, and for a few years it was going well for them, but because they were cheating on everyone, now they're enemies of everyone. And
Right.
it's just funny to see how those people are just like in their own corner, perhaps just being able to survive, but for the most part, the real fitness, evidence-based um, community, you could say, we're all like just in the same team.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, dude, that's a great point. Um, yeah, and I think like, yeah, just a great thing to kind of as we start to wrap up there, like, yeah, keeping that open mind and like working toward making progress rather than becoming part of a team. Like community is super important. That's why I like what you guys are doing. Like having that accountability, feeling like you're working, with a group of people. It's a great thing for adherence and just for pushing yourself. But yeah, you gotta make sure you're thinking more toward the line of progress rather than just doing it for, I guess, doing it for just doing its sake, I guess is a way to say that. But
Or
yeah, that's
just
it.
doing
That's a
it,
great
or
point.
just doing it to fit in.
Yeah.
You have to think critically. Okay,
Hmm.
whether we're talking about nutrition, training, ideologies, politics, whatever, I don't care. Use your brain. Don't just do what you're told or what everyone thinks.
Yeah.
Think things for yourself. And if you're in a group that doesn't allow for it, well, I mean, that's a huge red flag that you should notice and just use it as your call to just get out of that group, I suppose.
Yeah. Use it as your call to move to Florida from
Hell yeah.
Venezuela.
Hell
Yeah, Jorge, I want to be respectful of your time, man. I know we're just a little bit over an hour, and I'm sure you got more to do today, dude. But I want to leave it off with one more question before we do the wrap up. Um, Last question for you is, what's something that you've recently integrated into your training or nutrition or just approach? And what is that? Where'd you learn it from, and how is it benefiting you?
yeah.
It could be super small. It doesn't have to be anything big. Like maybe it's a form tweak,
I, I,
something.
I just really want to make sure that it's something meaningful. That
Yeah.
Well, something that applied over the past, I'd say, since I started doing a more evidence-based approach to training and more so training. Yeah, let's touch on training. And this is something that I've done for the past 5 years, but I've been progressively just getting better and better and better at it. And needs understand that training and I mean, as we were talking about, longevity is everything, and you can find ways to challenge yourself in the gym that does not require to getting hurt. Um, to be smart with training, to ensure that we leave the ego at the door,
Hmm.
that we accomplish the desired outcome, which is generate hypertrophy, to grow, to challenge our muscles, and just to be to work really hard. Like, don't get me wrong, you have to work hard to get results, but at the same time, um, to the same degree that you have to work hard, you have to pay attention to things like recovery, um, and apply that in your program, because that's going to, sometimes when you get more into the higher level training, sometimes the best way to take two steps forward is to take one step back. And so that means maybe decreasing a little bit the load so that you can go deeper on a movement. Fix your technique, even if that means getting a few less reps.
Hmm.
Taking a week of very light training, aka a deload, and or a full active rest day,
Hmm.
rest phase, before you
Yeah.
can push for more high quality months of training. And so that's something that as a reason still, and I'm still getting better at it. And I think people could benefit from applying themselves as well.
Dude, I love it. That was a great one. Yeah. Mine is I want to share one too because I actually learned it from you. Definitely not of the same scale. This one's just like a small little form tweak that I picked up on one of your videos. But that's doing the I think we do it the same way where it's like a free motion machine doing like bicep curls with the like a more lengthened position where your
Yes.
yeah, your arms are extended back. And I got like a fucking C plus in anatomy. I think shoulder extension, maybe, I don't know, whatever that is.
Yeah.
Where yeah, I barely passed anatomy. I was like, I don't know why you'd think anatomy would be a fun class to take. I was just never interested in it, man. So I forget all that shit. But yeah, like in the past I would use a slightly less range of motion. I was just standing too close to the machine, right? And it's still like a great movement, but taking a step or two out from that machine. Basically, I'll try to take off the headphones and give a quick
Totally.
show here. So like it'd be like here on the bicep curl versus like here.
Yes.
And that, let me tell you what, Jorge, I was like, son of a bitch. I had DOMs for 2 fucking weeks off those bicep curls because I paid attention to your videos. And that was a good little revelation for me. It's been spicing up some bicep training, making it fun. And yeah, I got that one from you, man.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Thank you. It's very interesting because even the small tweaks on that specific moment make a huge difference. Like something that when I started doing them with that degree of elbow extension, I noticed on the videos, because by the way, if you don't do this already, uh, for anyone watching this, record your sessions, because that's money right there. That's how you can assess
Yeah.
progress. But I noticed that while I was doing it, I was leaning slightly forward, which
Mm-hmm.
be kind of be the point of getting that stretch, because you're kind of
Yeah.
you're declining your torso, and so it's making it more like a straight curl.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're doing that, just make sure that you're staying as tall as possible, big chest, as upright as possible. Man, the stretch that you get down there is just insane. Yes,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah. And here's what we're talking about. Yeah. I think I need to integrate that, less lean forward. That's something that I still kind of do. Like right there is probably the position that I'm in. But I see you bring your torso back a little bit, chest up, facing towards the wall. And yeah, that can just put a whole other level of like stretch on your biceps. So for those who haven't tried it like this, definitely I don't like give this shot or give this type of form a shot. I feel like you'll probably like it. And dang, like look at those arms looking stacked in the video, dog. You've been diligent on that bicep training. I see you, bro.
Dude, I
And
mean,
look,
this upper body emphasis meso block, sorry, better pay off, because we're hitting arms almost every day.
holy shit. And you got what, 3 or 4? Yeah, 3 different bicep movements in a session. Yeah, that'll lead to some results. Love this ab movement. We threw some quads in the mix too. I like it, man.
Yeah,
I like what I'm seeing here. Nice,
thanks.
dude. Hey, well, want to get you on with your day. Make sure that we're valuing everybody's time here. Appreciate you for once again, third time on the podcast, a great friend of the podcast. So I got to tell everybody, go ahead, follow my boy right here. Follow Jorge. There's the @ It's been in front of your screen the whole time, but go check him out on Instagram. Do you do much on other social media profiles as well, or is it mostly Instagram?
Man, it's mostly Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
I try to kind of be on TikTok a little bit, but be honest with you, I have to delete the app after like a week, because I
Yeah.
don't my I feel like I lose brain cells every time I enter that
Oh,
app.
TikTok's wild, man. Yeah, I'm with you.
But yeah, mostly Instagram.
Got you. Yep. So we'll check you out on Instagram. Are you currently taking clients, or is it a pretty full load right now?
So actually, I open up spots for coaching at the end of each month,
Okay.
just because I love to just have people all the time, but
Mm-hmm.
it's only me and I can only handle so much people. And so
Yeah.
I currently have a few slots open for next month. So yeah, if you're interested and you need some help, you're serious, reach out.
Yeah, yeah, and definitely I feel like I mentioned, we'll have to talk about some links for quantum physiques. Make sure we get that information to the people so I can link that in the descriptions below. So go ahead and check that out. Sounds like a great community to be a part of. So I got to check it out too. I'm like, it's a
Yeah,
pretty cool
absolutely.
thing.
I'd love to have you in there, man.
Yeah, yeah, dude, that'd be good. But did I miss anything? Anything else we need to highlight before we let you go here?
No, I think that we're good. I think, yeah.
Sick. Hey, I'm gonna do my sign off real quick. So appreciate you all for watching this episode of the Trainer Scoop. Once again, thank you to Jorge for popping on. Really appreciate you, my man. So go ahead, support Jorge, support the podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, go ahead, like, comment, subscribe, ring the notification bell, or whatever else you do on YouTube. If you're on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, you can go ahead and leave me a review. Those are always much beneficial. They're always beneficial. We'll go that route. Beneficial for getting some feedback. And by all means, guys, drop some questions below. Maybe we'll have to do a Q&A Jorge and David podcast in the future. If you guys have any pressing questions or any questions at all, I feel like it'd be a good time to do a little Q&A with you. So appreciate your time, Jorge, and appreciate everybody for watching, and we'll catch you in the next episode. See ya.